Now, what is the heart rate and what is the heartbeat? The heart rate is the number of beats in a minute. If you remember, in the cardiac cycle, first the two atria contract, pushing the blood into the two ventricles, and then the two ventricles contract, pushing the blood into the blood vessels, the arteries. This is one beat. How many beats in a minute? Now, the heartbeat is normally 70 beats per minute. This means that the cardiac cycle or the heartbeat is repeated 70 times each minute. This is normally, but the heartbeat changes according to the needs of the body. In order for the heart to work efficiently, it needs to reduce the heartbeat during rest and increase the heartbeat during exercise. Now, why is this? During exercise, the muscles need more energy, and the energy is released from burning the food with oxygen, a process we call cellular respiration. Cellular because it occurs in cells, and respiration because the food is oxidized or it reacts with oxygen. Now, more oxygen means more blood, so the heart beats more than the 70 times at rest to supply the extra oxygen. So the heart rate increases during exercise to provide the muscle cells with extra oxygen. Not only that the heart rate increases, but also the stroke volume increases. What is the stroke volume? Now, the stroke volume, do you see here? This is your heart and this is your left ventricle. When the left ventricle is filled with blood, then when it contracts, most of the blood goes to the aorta, but a little amount stays in the heart. The difference between the volume in this case and in this case, that is what the stroke volume. So the volume of blood pushed by the left ventricle of the heart into the blood vessels with each beat is the stroke volume. The cardiac output, the amount of blood which is released into the arteries, is HR, the heart rate, times the stroke volume. This is 70 milliliters and this is 70 also. And when you multiply them, you get 4,900 milliliters per minute, means almost 5 liters. This means that the heart pushes a volume equal to the volume of all the blood in your body, because we have almost 5 liters of blood in the body. Now, what happens when you feel angry or in a situation where you need to run away? When a person is angry or afraid, the heart rate increases also to get extra blood to the muscles. This helps the person respond to the situation either by fighting or flighting. This response is complicated and it includes hormones, but now we are just interested in that the heartbeat increases during situations where you are angry or afraid and you need to fight or flight. Now, have you ever asked yourself what is the composition of the blood? Now, this is your blood flowing through your blood vessels. Sometimes you can see blood vessels near the skin, and the blood is the red fluid that flows in the heart and blood vessels, and it is also considered a tissue. Why is this? The blood contains different types of cells. That's why it is considered as a tissue. The cells in the blood are red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. All of them flow in the blood inside blood vessels. Now, this is a device or a machine called centrifuge. The centrifuge, we put a test tube that contains the blood. Here, these are test tubes that contain the blood. They are put inside the centrifuge. It rotates with high speed. And what happens is the blood separates. This red part is the red blood cells. There is another small proportion here of white blood cells. And this yellow part is the plasma. The plasma is the fluid in the blood. So the blood, after centrifugation, separates into red blood cells, white blood cells, which is a small amount, and the erythrocytes or the red blood cells are just 44% of the blood. The white blood cells are just 1%, and the plasma is 55% of the blood. Now, these are the red blood cells. If we look at a sample of the blood under a microscope, we are able to see the red blood cells enlarged. And you can see that the red blood cell has no nucleus and it is biconcave. This means that it is concave from both sides. And the red blood cells are biconcave discs and they don't have nuclei. Why is this? Now we will learn in a minute. There are millions of red blood cells in each millimeter cube of blood because their volume is high. What is the function of the red blood cell? It transports oxygen. In order to do this, it contains a protein called hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is the protein which takes in the oxygen and therefore transports the oxygen. Now, here you have, if you remember, the cycle of the blood in the body. First, the deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen. Then it is returned to the heart, which pushes it into the aorta to all the body organs. Inside the red blood cell, there is a protein called hemoglobin. It is an iron-rich protein غني بالحديد موجود في red blood cells. Now this loads on oxygen in the lungs and releases them when it goes to body organs and tissues. So the function of the hemoglobin is to load oxygen in the lungs and unload them in other regions in the body, tissues and organs. And that's why the red blood cell does not have nucleus, because all the space inside is taken up by hemoglobin so that it can transport a large amount of oxygen. We have talked about erythrocytes. What else do we have? We have white blood cells called leukocytes. Erythrocytes are the red blood cells. Now pay attention to the word "cyte" at the end of their naming, the names. Now the white blood cells has two types. One of them is called phagocytes and the other kind is called lymphocytes. So all of them end with cytes. You have to describe them and you have to know their function. Let's start with phagocytes. The word phago means swallow. Phagocytes are the cells which swallow what? They swallow, they digest and destroy bacteria. Now this is a white blood cell and this is bacteria. It is going to swallow and digest the bacteria to get rid of it. Any bacteria that gets inside our body is combated and killed by the white blood cells. Now, the phagocytes have two shapes. The nucleus inside the cell is either spherical or it is lobed. It is broken into pieces, lobes. ليها فصوص أو مدورة. The phagocytes has two shapes and it is much larger than the red blood cell. What about the other side, lymphocyte? The lymphocyte has a smaller size. Its size is almost the size of red blood cells, and its nucleus is spherical only. What job does it do? Again, its job is defense against microbes, but in a different way. Instead of swallowing bacteria, it produces antibodies. The antibodies fight and destroy the microorganisms attached to them, and then they are killed. So one of them, اللي هي الphagocytes, kill the bacteria by swallowing it, and the lymphocytes kill the bacteria by producing antibodies to destroy the microorganisms. Now, after the infection is done, العدوى خلصت والبكتيريا ماتت خلاص. Some lymphocytes persist, keep staying in the blood. After the infection is done and we are well, we are not ill anymore. And this gives us immunity from certain diseases. The last part is the platelets. They are smallest part. And look, they are not full cells. They are parts of cells. They are fragments of cells. And their function is to release chemicals to make the blood clot when we cut ourselves. This is a blood vessel. It might be near the skin. You have injured yourself and the blood vessel wall is cut. The blood can go out. If a person bleeds a lot, loses blood a lot, he will die. So how does the body protect itself when there is an injury to a blood vessel? The platelets accumulate together and form a clot. بتكون جلطة. ازاي that they collect together and break down and produce chemicals and start accumulating and forming fibers in this way. This is what we call a clot and it closes the damaged blood vessel. خيوط من الفايبرين with dead cells with platelets together, they form a clot. The clot closes the damaged blood vessel and prevents the bleeding, the loss of blood. And it also prevents the entry of microbes and microorganisms into the body. So it protects us from losing blood and it protects us from microbes. And by this, we have learned a lot about the blood composition and how it protects us against microbes, against cuts and bleeding, and also provides us with oxygen. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this lesson.